Contacted while running or throwing 10 times on week 2 and 18 times through 2 games this season, his most times in that span. All right. Is the Steelers season over? Marcus Spears will be joining us.
Well, he'll be there. Definitely looking forward to talking to Swaggo about that. Let me be very, very clear. If Ben Roethlisberger cannot go for an extended period of time, the Steelers season is over. I'm just going to put it out there right now. You haven't looked that damn good to begin with. Let's just call it what it is. The Steelers offense has been anemic, to be kind. We know that Mike Tomlin has been coaching this team for 14 years. We know he's never had a losing season, but there's a first time for everything. And it'll be a first time this year because I'll be damned if I believe in Mason Rudolph. I never have. As a matter of fact, I'm looking forward to seeing Dwayne Haskins before I think about Mason Rudolph. I just ain't sold. And if Dwayne Haskins can't beat out Mason Rudolph, maybe he needs to think about another line of work. Because as far as I'm concerned, Mason Rudolph ain't the answer. Not for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not based on what I've seen him do in his tenure as their perpetual backup quarterback. In the end, here's the bottom line. When you look at this, the Pittsburgh Steelers, their offensive line is incredibly suspect. We understand that. We recognize that. Bunch of no-names on there. I mean, Villanueva, for crying out loud, is now Baltimore Ravens. It used to be sacrilegious to go from Pittsburgh to Baltimore. Now it seems just ordinary. I don't understand it. But that's neither here nor there. And, of course, Pouncey and those boys retired. In the end, they got a bunch of no-names on their offensive line, don't seem to know how to run block, don't seem to know how to pass block, seems to be a problem. We saw Big Ben Roethlisberger get sacked twice, hit 10 times. It's a problem. And I'm looking at the weapons that they have. And Chase Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster and James Washington and Deontay Johnson and Eric Ebron. These are not slouches. These are bona fide targets that you could utilize if you pass protect and gave the quarterback an opportunity to breathe before throwing the damn football. They could do some things. So the fact that you haven't been able to do that in the first 2 games, albeit against Buffalo and Las Vegas Raiders respectively, the bottom line is that doesn't spell well for you. And then now we've got Big Ben Roethlisberger. And so I look at it from the standpoint that if you don't have him available to go out there for you and ball, I don't see how you overcome this time around. Not with Cleveland and Baltimore looking the way they look. Not with Buffalo on the come up, despite the fact that you beat them in week 1. Not with New England relevant. Not with the Raiders relevant. Not with the Chiefs there and Tennessee. I just don't see it. As far as I'm concerned, if the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have Ben Roethlisberger, they've got no chance. This season's over.
Molly Q, you feel it? Do you feel it coming out of him? You feel it? You feel that emotion and that energy? I'm glad I'm not in New York right now because I know it's thick in that studio right now. See, all the days that I've had to sit on here and hear about the Cowboys and their downfall, I kind of want to relish in this moment right now, but I'm not going to do it because I don't think their season is over. And I think here's something I'm about to say that might sound a little bit crazy to people, all right? I don't think Ben is done, but Ben is not supported like we've seen older quarterbacks be supported at this juncture in their career. The team is not set up in order for him to have success. Getting the ball out of your hands quick, like Mike Tomlin mentioned, that's not going to work for the Pittsburgh Steelers because teams are pressing up on all of their receivers. Everybody is playing close to the line of scrimmage because you have a quarterback that can't move. And Stephen A., you said something that I think everybody needs to pay attention to. If Mason Rudolph is the backup right now, they need to see what Dwayne Haskins can do. Because what Big Ben's problem is, without the offensive line and watching these past 2 weeks, Ben can't move. Ben can still throw. He can still put the ball where it needs to be put, but he cannot move. And when you're behind an offensive line and you have a quarterback that's immobile, that's a level of destruction in this league based on what defenses do now that is not set up for you to have success. Look, I'm not saying Dwayne Haskins is great, the greatest thing since sliced bread, but I know he can move. He can avoid some contact. Mason Rudolph can as well. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm going to take y'all back a couple years ago. Y'all remember when Big Ben was hurt and Stephen A. was on here pumping his chest talking about Mike Tomlin, 8-8, Duck Hodges, and Mason Rudolph. And here is the thing I want people to understand, Stephen A., because I absolutely understand where you're coming from with your sentiments about the Pittsburgh Steelers. They need a quarterback back there that can move, boss. And that will help this football team. The thing that I'm more concerned about is TJ Watt. That's what I'm more concerned about because coming into this season, they were hanging their hat on defense anyway. Yeah. But Mike Tomlin is still on that sideline. That team understands how to win, and that's why we can never count the Pittsburgh Steelers out. They still have playmakers, like you mentioned, offensively. I'm sorry to say, but this situation is not conducive for Ben Roethlisberger to be their starting quarterback. It's more conducive for one of those guys backing them up that can get themselves out of harm's way.
Well, the reason I disagree with you is because you're talking about system when I'm saying the system would be irrelevant if you had an offensive line that could protect the quarterback. You really are deficient. You're so deficient at the offensive line position that the bottom line is you can't protect the quarterback, and that's compromising everything. Now, if you had a decent offensive line and we saw this offense looking this way, I would completely agree with you. I'm saying simply, Swagger, we don't know because you can't pass protect. And that's a problem. You can't run block. We know what Najee Harris can do. It ain't complicated to run the damn football. You either got it or you don't. And clearly Najee Harris coming out of Alabama definitely had it. So we know what he can bring to the table. The fact of the matter is the first 2 games of this season, you've had him running into a wall. Nobody is blocking for him. So that's problematic in and of itself. Do they need a more mobile quarterback? Sure. But that's only because that quarterback won't get hit as much because they'll be running for their life and they'll be a bit more evasive than Ben Roethlisberger instead of being a stationary target. And as a result, they won't absorb as much punishment. But it still doesn't change the reality.
But we also, what I'm trying to explain to you is we also got to put some of this on the fact that Ben is not mobile, which limits them from what they possibly can do offensively, right?
Okay.
Look, everybody is under the understanding that the offensive line is bad. But you know where else the offensive line is bad too? In Chicago. And what are we screaming for? Put Justin Fields in so you can create an offense, you can have a philosophy, and potentially have a scheme to get your quarterback out of harm's way. You can do that pre-snap. You can do that with motion. You can do that with shifts. But you're trying to ask a 39-year-old quarterback that's never done it in his career to change his stripes under Matt Canada, their new offensive coordinator. Look, Ben is a statue, bro. This offensive line is bad. In order to try to compensate for that in the NFL, you create schemes that moves your quarterback. And if Pittsburgh is going to be stubborn, right, like I think they've been anyway by not getting ahead of replacing Ben Roethlisberger or having someone, but if they're recognizing, I get all of the feelings in Pittsburgh. I understand all of that. We watched Peyton Manning behind a good offensive line in Denver win a Super Bowl. You know why? Because he was able to stand still and deliver the ball. That's not this situation.
Well, hold on.
Go ahead.
Hold on for a second up. We can't really condemn them in this respect. Although the Tom Brady's of the world and others were taken in the later rounds, the reality is most often when you find a quarterback, you know what, it better be in the first or second round. And the Steelers haven't really had that because they've been winning football games. And so as a result of winning football games, the quarterbacks that were attractive enough to be drafted high enough were usually gone when it was their time to come around. So I can't completely condemn them for that because if it ain't available, it ain't available. What I will concede is that you've had enough time, considering Ben Roethlisberger's age, to invest in a quarterback that could replace him. You could have done that. And the fact that Mason Rudolph has been your backup for years doesn't move me at all. And so in that regard, I understand where you're coming from. I know that Ben, being the statue that he is, compromises them in all the ways that you articulated. I totally get that. But in the end, I'm looking at it from the standpoint that if Ben Roethlisberger cannot throw the football for you, cannot get out there on the field, and your response is Mason Rudolph, even though you picked up Dwayne Haskins, you essentially have 2/3